Greetings, and welcome to The Thirsty Mage, the podcast that refuses to shy away from a strange experience. I'm your host and man looking to kill chaos, David Lloyd, and this week we're inspired by the most bizarre release from Square Enix in some time, Stranger of Paradise. We'll get into our early impressions later in the episode, but first up we're going to discuss a few other interesting titles that have come up over the years. Joining me tonight is the man whose office door actually won a fight against chaos, which caused Jordan to take Zoom calls from his car, and that's Jordan Rudick.
Yeah, I don't know what was more chaotic, me having to cancel a bunch of office hours or offering office hours through Zoom by sitting in my car. And I could have very easily gone to the library, but I would say I wanted some privacy if I was talking to students or anything. Fortunately, no students actually came to the Zoom office hours. So it turned out that I was just literally sitting in my car on my Chromebook. I've got my phone, internet on, tethered to my Chromebook, and I'm kind of just sitting there, probably on Twitter or something like that. But I was trying to work, but no one wanted to work with me. So it worked out for the best. I finally got into my office today. So it's funny you bring that up. It took about a week, I guess, to figure out what the problem was, get the locksmith to come in and change the door. I don't know what they did exactly, because my same key still works with the door. So that seems weird. I thought they would have to change more than that. But fingers crossed I can get into my office for the rest of the semester. Then I'll be happy.
No, that'll learn you for giving that whichever student went and vandalized your door an F on their latest assignment, I guess.
Yeah, well, that should have happened years ago if that was the case. But yes, someone must have figured, oh, this is how I'll get him. I'll stop him from working. Okay.
And he's been gone for a little while, but also joining us is a man who's been known to cause some chaos in his day. It's Chris Reed.
Not only do I cause chaos, I listen to Limp Bizkit on my way to Walgreens to pay for minutes on my track phone, just like in high school. Yeah.
That's just one of the many peculiarities in this upcoming game that we have here. But yeah, I think listening to Limp Bizkit in the year 2022 it can be considered bizarre at this point.
It definitely is chaotic. So I'm looking forward to hearing about this delightful game.
Yeah, that's right. And I'm going to give bonus points to anyone who picks up on the Chuck Norris reference here. Finally, someone who Chaos has to check underneath their bed every night to make sure she isn't hiding there to exact revenge. It's Paige Chamberlain.
I was just thinking of killing Chaos. It's like the first boss of Final Fantasy. So you see, in the original demo for Stranger of Paradise. I forget his name, but he's also a fight in the thing in Final Fantasy 14. So of course, when I first encountered that, I was I just had to, we're here to kill Chaos. In the chat.
Yeah, well, that's one of the things I'll talk about when we get to that, is that it's we're not going to spoil anything. I specifically only played the amount of time that the demo is, so there's nothing past the second world. But that character Garland that becomes Chaos, obviously spoiler for the original game, I guess. That's not actually Garland, so that's one of the things that kind of blew my mind right away. But I'm also looking at my notes, and because what's the Anchorman's name there? Will Ferrell. I can't remember his
Ron Burgundy.
Ron Burgundy. As I'm reading the notes, I noticed that either I mistyped a couple words, or somebody was having fun with me.
It looks like you were drunk when you wrote Paige's description here, because there are 5 or 6 different mistakes here. And I don't know how you got through it. Yeah, and then you say there's a hidden reference in there. No, looking at
question mark after my name.
There's no way to know. The spacing is all off. If you were the student of my class, David, that's your F right there.
Yeah, I mean, the show notes do match pretty well with our theme. I mean, those are Nomura style show notes right there. So
yeah, exactly.
I'm shocked I got through it, to be honest with you, because I'm the total Ron Burgundy. I'll just read whatever I wrote, and not even care what if I'm making any sense, because most of the time I'm not anyway, so it doesn't really matter.
I like it. We're off to a good start here.
Yeah, well, geez. It's funny. I've noticed in the past few weeks that our intros we've kind of completely lost the drink and snack discussion. It's kind of just fallen off the wayside. And
I can bring it back. Like I'd actually, would it be chaotic then to bring it back? Like if we stop doing it and then it's chaos to bring it back.
If you got something, you go right ahead. I know we were running low on Oreo types, and I'm at the point where like I'm just drinking extremely niche Quebec microbreweries that no one will be able to find beer for anyway. So I mean, if you got something, you go right ahead.
I do actually, yeah. So I guess the Oreo cookie is celebrating its 110th birthday this year. I think it's this year because I haven't seen this packaging of these cookies before this. But so there's it's kind of a multicolored, rainbow-colored kind of bag, very very shiny bag that it comes in. It says Oreo 110 birthday. And then it's got an Oreo kind of dressed up like a cake on the front. Not to be confused with the birthday cake flavored Oreos, which are different. You know, there's some comparison to be made, I think, between them, but they're a distinct cookie for sure. But these ones, yeah, they have it's a standard chocolate cookie, top and bottom. On the inside, they've got a mixture of chocolate flavored cream, and then I think it's the standard white cream, but it's got like confetti in it, kind of those birthday cake type sprinkles that are baked into things sometimes, or you find them in icing. So it's got that on the inside, the two different creams inside. It's quite good. And then you've got kind of sort of like the sugar crystal type sprinkles you put on things. Sometimes you buy them, at a baking aisle in a grocery store or something. So multicolored sugar type sprinkles on top of the cookie as well. So it's got a little bit going on for sure. Like there's a lot of different things happening. I don't think that the flavor is super distinct. It's good. Don't get me wrong. Like it's one of the better Oreos out there probably. Again, it's a little bit decadent. I can't have too many Oreos these days. It might be the chocolate in there, and then you've got the chocolate cream on the inside as well. But it's a good one. Like I would definitely recommend it to Oreo fans, especially if you liked the birthday cake flavor, because that was a little bit sweeter. This one feels that way as well, but it's got the chocolate in the middle to kind of balance that out with a little bit. I don't know what you would call chocolate flavor, but it's not sickly sweet or anything like that. It's a little bit more bitter. So you've got that nice mix of cream in the middle, and then you got the sprinkles on top. It's a slightly thicker cookie because of the two different creams in the middle. I have to say one thing though, and maybe this is the part of the chaos theme. It's not an even amount of the two, or if it's even, it's kind of, they're kind of smushed together, the creams in the middle. So it's not like one straight layer of the white cream with the sprinkles inside, and then one straight layer of the chocolate. It's like, if you're looking at one side of the cookie, you'll see the white side. And if you look at the other side, you'll see the chocolate side. And then in the middle, both icing types or cream types are kind of smushed together. So it's a little bit chaotic in the middle of the cookie, but very tasty, very flavorful. Definitely one I would have again for sure. And so if you see that in your store, I panic bought. I'm like, oh, I haven't seen this before. I saw it on Amazon for like $9. I'm like, oh, is this rare? Like, should I buy this now? I haven't seen it in the stores yet. So I panic bought it for $9, and then I realized, oh, it's just like normal $3 or $4 price at the grocery store. So I don't know how long they're going to sell them for, but they got me for 3 times the retail price, anyways. But they're very good. They're very good.
It's funny that you mentioned that particular one because my kids saw it in the grocery store just on the weekends, and my daughter came running up to me, and I was like, "No, we don't need Oreos. Put them back."
Right? Yeah. See, that was the opposite of me. I'm like, I don't need them, but I'm just gonna buy them anyways. But yeah, I haven't shown my kids yet. Oh, yeah, like I'd say probably like I'm trying to think how many flavors have I done. They're definitely in the top half, probably in the top third. Maybe even like just top 5. Like I if I knew how many flavors I'd done, I think like 18 or something like that. Maybe they're definitely up there. I would need to kind of I'd want to have the birthday cake one again just to compare those two, because I know I put birthday cake really high, and I don't think these are quite as good as those, but they're close.
Yeah. Well, Paige or Christy, got any food, drinks, anything to before we?
I could talk about one since it's themed towards South Australian, and I'm going there next week, but I haven't actually eaten it myself, so I can't comment on whether it tastes any good.
Yeah, sure.
So the frog cake, it's actually got listed as a South Australian heritage icon, and it was invented in 1922. And so basically, it's a cupcake sort of thing where the frog's mouth is facing upwards. And looking at the cross section of it, it seems to be so the sponge cake with jam center, and then there's cream on the top to make sort of the head of it. And then it's covered in like green, or there's a couple other colors like green fondant, and then they like chop in the middle to make the frog's open mouth. So it looks like it's got quite a lot of flavor going on there. And then they said, so I've seen them. They do also sell them in the supermarkets around the country, but I think if I have one, I might do it in the actual. Sorry.
I was just looking at it now.
You saw a picture of it.
Yeah, it's like their mouth is like up at the sky, like it's not.
You know what it reminds me of is in Super Mario Brothers 3. There's those like green chompy chomps.
They're sort of like piranha plants, but not exactly the same. Like or you're thinking about the ones that kind of crawl around a little bit.
No. There's okay, so there's the level where you can ride in the boot.
Yes, yeah, the Kirbashu.
Yeah, and in the level are these they're not piranha plants, but they only have like 2 frames. There's like mouth open, mouth closed, and they're green, and they're almost like
green.
spiked.
Okay.
I'll have to look that up and find that. But that's what those remind me of. Or there's the fishing game. I don't know if you guys ever played the fishing board game where
like a little.
They look like these frogs, and like they open their mouth and close their mouth, and you're supposed to fish them out.
That's good.
Yeah. It also, I don't know if you've had it, but it says here that frog cakes are similar to Mr. Kipling's French Fancies, which is, I guess, some kind of cupcake thing. Because I was saying what cakes are similar. But yeah, I might see if I can find some authentic ones while I'm there and let you know if it's worth eating. Because I think I'd rather try it from the source than the grocery bakery ones.
Paige, is it just me, or often when you bring up a dessert, the jam is related? Is jam a big thing in Australia? Like, I feel like so many of the desserts incorporate jam in some way.
I don't know if it's a big thing, but I guess for desserts maybe, because like sponge in general, if you have sponge cake, you'd probably have jam with it, or if you had scones, you'd have jam with it. I think jam, aside from that's probably only used on toast outside of desserts. I
just can't think of too many desserts that in Canada, at least, maybe David will correct me, or Chris for the States, but I can't think of too many that would have that jam is always a part of them. And like, you just see this in the store and that's what you buy that if you want that. Like, it feels like something that is coming up more when you share a dessert with us. Yeah,
there's not too many that come to mind for me. Like, I know often if you buy a scone, they'll put jam on it, but there's not. Other than that, there's not a whole lot of jam-based desserts. I don't think.
I don't think there's also a lot of scones being bought here. Like scones, like you can get them, but like it's not I wouldn't call it a big thing in Canada either.
Yeah,
and here in the States, it's mostly if it's a dessert, it's a jelly that's inside a pastry or something like that, but no jam on the outside, really.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, well, I was thinking, God, there's not too many. Then I remembered I did the hot jam donuts the other day, and you guys were confused because I had to explain, what jam is, and like, because you jelly jam.
Let's not get into that again. We'll have to bring Xander. If we do, we'd have to bring Xander on to make sure that he's on the same page.
Oh wait, did we clarify that Chris knows what a hemisphere is?
Yes, I'm well aware of where hemispheres are. I might not be able to point to the right one on a map, but I at least can tell you the general direction of it.
We've made that a condition of coming on the podcast. Is before anyone starts recording, David reaches out to you privately and asks, "Can you please define these crucial terms ahead of the podcast recording?"
He's like, "What season is it in Australia right now?"
That's right, exactly. It's like the skill testing question when you try to win a prize, right? Like you got to answer that first.
The baseline question.
The cultural sensitivity quiz.
Well, I'm an American, so y'all is upside down over there as far as I'm concerned here. So that's all I got.
This is chaos. This is the chaos we've been missing. Very good. Love it.
Well, this seems like a good as time as ever to move on to the theme of the Tonight Show, which is some bizarre RPGs. I know there's plenty of weird RPGs that get lots of attention. Earthbound and Undertale come to mind for that. But we have a few other RPGs that we think are just a little bit on the weird side or on the odd side, a little bizarre for maybe, the story's a little out there, or maybe it's something that the developer's just not really known for. And so, yeah, we have a few entries each that we're going to talk about. And I think we'll start with Paige. Why don't you tell us what game that you thought was a bit on the wild side?
Well, first, the only thing I could think of was a game I really didn't like, so I didn't want to talk about it. So I just ended up going, okay, what's a quick, weird RPGs? And then one listed Miitopia, and I'm like, of course. I thought in Miitopia and also Hero Land, they're both weird in that they're comedy focused, but also the combat, it's a turn-based RPG, but it's slightly more offhand than you'd be used to. Although, as far as I'm aware, I think the original Persona 3 doesn't let you control the other party members too, which would drive me nuts in a game like that. But in Miitopia, it's just weird in that you make the entire cast of your party members, you make the townspeople the major story NPCs all out of me, so your friends, your family, random celebrities, dogs, whatever you can make, especially with the Switch version where you can really go all out with the custom designs on the faces and the wigs. I made myself a sad clown for quite a while. And yeah, in Miitopia, you sort of auto progress through these pathways. You get into a random battle or situation, and you can control your own character's moves, but you cannot control what your party members do, which, to some people is a bit annoying. But you do have other things you can do, such as you get these sprinkles over time, which become more powerful the more you use them. So you can sort of temporarily stop things to throw some more HP from a little salt shaker you have. I think we called one of them chicken salt when I was streaming it because it was that color. But you got HP, give them some more MP, maybe wake them up, and then if they've got a status effect, you can backbench them for a bit so that they can recover faster. And then you've also got control outside of the battle where you pair them up together so they level up their friendship, so then they'll get cool new, they might sacrifice themselves for whoever's their best friend or something else suspicious. And now you've got a whole horse that you can make friends with and hang out with the horse too. So you've got bits where you're running along the beach with the horse. and it's just a very so it's weird in the, you don't necessarily have full control, and along with just the sort of silly things you get up to, because it's very, it's meant to be funny, meant to be make your own everything. It's also definitely designed to be played a bit at a time, because the arcs are very much the same. You kind of go through the same thing over and over again for a little bit. But, like me, I think both times I played the 3DS and the Switch, I just went through it in a week until the post-game comes up, and I was like, oh. And then, similar thing to that, where it's very much kind of offhands, and also you have to, it's a significantly even longer game than that is Hero Land, where again it's very much meant to be played a little bit at a time, but it's also such a massively long game. I feel like you'd be playing a bit every day, and it'd probably take you quite a while. So I hope you have a lot of transit time where you're allowed to play games and you're not driving. But in Hero Land, and I think Hero Land's probably even more funny because you're a specific character, and it's really about harsh work culture. You're basically an indentured servant to the theme park because somebody deliberately made you break a vase that's worth a lot, and you only get paid in company credits. And you're the tour guide for a hero themed theme park. So you go through these dungeons, and all the monsters and stuff are just cast members in costumes and things like that. And the party members are in some kind of a like active time battle, and you can't directly, you can't tell them what to do, but every so often it builds up, and you can either strategize, so you can be like go all out or guard or something like that, like try to instruct them to do something specific, or use items to try and heal them back up, because you don't not necessarily, they've all got very strong personalities, and they're not necessarily thinking in the best interests of actually clearing the dungeon and being a proper hero. So yeah, they're both very interesting games, but definitely if you are playing them, I would just play a little bit at a time.
Paige, when you describe Miitomi, and I think I played the demo
Miitopia.
for it, or I might play the demo on 3DS or something like that.
Yeah.
I always think about a game like Tomodachi Life, which I actually played a lot. Like my wife and I both played, and it was really, really silly, and obviously using your Miis and stuff like that. It's a lot to relate there, I think, right?
Well, in Tomodachi Life, you've got that Tomodachi Quest, and that's what Miitopia was based on. That they're like, all right, let's make this the whole RPG.
I completely forgot about that. That's right.
It's similar in that you make people and they have relationships, and you've got that little aspect of seeing them, and especially in the Switch version, they added even more. Like they added date scenarios that you can actually see. So that's the other thing I didn't mention. So personalities, like say in Hero Land they're set characters, and then in Miitopia you've got the classes where you could be a pop star or a cat or a literal tank, things like that. But then they also have personality types, so that affects, they might be stubborn, so when another teammate tries to heal them, they go, nah, I don't need it, even when they do really need it. Or they might, there's
just like in real life, your friends they're hurt, and you're like, "Oh, do you need a Band-Aid? Do you need some medicine or Tylenol?" Like, no, I'm fine, right?
Or certain moves can hurt the other party members, so then they start getting mad at them and have grudges for a little while. So it's really just about all the funny, same with Tomodachi, like a lot of funny little things you can see between characters, especially if you make them your friends. Or I made the Chef Sanji, and he was like the brave character, so he kept like sacrificing himself for other party members, things like that. But yeah, they're both very like funny, and they're weird in the sense that you don't have, aside from the themes and all the weird, like the silly stuff that happens. Aside from that, they're not having the complete control, but having partial influence in the battles.
Yeah. It just feels like these are games like that, if you put more into them, you can get more out of them, right? Like if you have a lot of Miis of like friends and family or famous people, and then you put them, they're going to have to be thrown into funny situations. That's what creates the entertainment of these games, right? Not necessarily like stellar or outstanding gameplay or something like that, but just seeing something that you've created kind of put into this world and going about like the day-to-day or minute-to-minute tasks that are assigned to you, right?
Well, in this one, it's a whole big adventure and not a day-to-day task.
That's right. Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
But it is probably better if you make your own characters for like at least your main party members. And then when it comes to the townsfolk, maybe you just want to fill in from stuff other people have made, because you do end up picking a lot of characters.
Yeah.
And that was like a thing I did a lot on the 3DS. And you can share with friends on the Switch now too. So your friend makes a cool one, you can just take theirs, or you can take their Mii and put them in your party without having to make it yourself.
Yeah, I remember scanning QR codes, right? You could scan QR codes of Miis, I think, to upload, to get them into your game or get them into your 3DS or something. I don't know if the Switch does something similar.
Yeah, 3DS had QR codes, and there was just like a browser of the top, a few hundred Miis that have been used. And then on the Switch, you have just your friends list. You can choose to make certain Miis public or private, so then you can go to your friends list and take their Miis. And I think and then individual codes that people share as well.
Okay.
Cool. Yeah, it's Jordan, you mentioned I've seen Tomodachi Life. I own it. My daughter played it quite a bit, and just seeing family members and Miis that we had created doing weird things. There was many time I was driving in the car and she was playing on the 3DS, and there'd be like this music video or music dance where there's it'd be like her singing, and then like the rest of the family member in the band or whatever, and the song going on, and I'm like, she thinking it was the funniest thing in the world having the family do this pop song. Yeah, just I could just imagine it even being, switching that over to an RPG, and if I was like the villain of the game and they were playing or something, like it would be pretty funny. I can see lots of mayhem going on there.
Mm-hmm.
Cool. We'll go on to Chris's pick, and this is an N64 game I definitely have not played, but reading up on it sounds pretty wild.
Yeah, this is amazing. So I'm going to set the scene for you guys. So it's 1999, and you're a punk 15-year-old starved for an RPG because you're an idiot and only have an N64 and not a PlayStation at the time. So you're reading through Nintendo Power, and you finally figure out, hey, this RPG from Konami is going to be coming out. So you get in your car, you put in your latest Limp Bizkit album, Significant Other. It's a classic. Drive to Blockbuster. Remember those? Get it, go home, put it in, and you're greeted to a cutscene where your main character, Johnny Slater, is butt naked in his apartment answering a general for some reason, saying you have to go to Manhattan to do something with the president. You're not sure. But your girlfriend's mad at you because you have to get back by Christmas because it's Christmas time. Okay. So then you decide to go on your quest where you are. It just spirals out of control from there. And it's amazing. This is hybrid heaven. This is notorious RPG on the Nintendo 64. One of the few RPGs there. And this one just makes a name for itself with just how insane it is. The best way I could describe it is if Hideo Kojima had tried to make an N64 Metal Gear game, and there actually are rumors that this was supposed to be an N64 Metal Gear game at first, that was kind of abandoned halfway through. We'll never know the actual story to that, but that is a rumor that's been going around for a while. So what Konami did was they took what was there and they tried to make something out of it. And so their answer in this crazy convoluted sci-fi plot involving transhumanism, clones, the president, Christmas, whatever, is to add a combat system using wrestling moves. So in this game, you are running around underground environments in New York. And then when you get... And then you're doing Metal Gear Solid style stuff, right? You're running around, you're very awkwardly shooting these surveillance drones that takes forever to shoot because the controls are awful and it's an N64 controller, so you don't have any precision with anything at all. But then once you get to an actual enemy, it switches into a battlefield wherein then that enemy's charging you. You like, okay, you don't know what you're doing, so you see a meter pit filling up that's power. And then once you actually get to the enemy, a menu pops up that gives you can use your hands, use your legs, or do a grapple, and you can literally do like wrestling moves on these enemies. So it's turn-based combat. You are running around doing turn-based combat, kicking aliens and pile driving them at some point. And then as you're doing this, of course, it's an RPG, you have to level up. But what you do is you don't get any new equipment or real skills. What you do is you level up the parts of your body. So you can put points into your right leg or your left leg or your arms or your head for headbutting. And it just goes from there. I have no words to describe it. If you haven't seen videos of this thing, you have to go watch at least a couple of them because it's absolutely wild and insane. And the fact that this came out is just incredible to me. This is just an amazing game.
I've heard of this game, but or at least I'd heard of the title. I can't believe I never played it because I rented a lot of N64 games. It just feels like one I would have randomly grabbed at the video store one time, but I never did. None of my friends owned this game. Chris, was this a late N64 game, perchance?
This was 1999, so
okay, not too late then.
Not terribly
not
late,
too late. Kind of middle of life cycle then. So that's funny that I never had a chance to play this one. But just looking at it, watching some of the video, it's wild. It's definitely one of those like games that I would have seen on like Angry Video Game Nerd or just some video of worst games on the N64 kind of thing. Like it looks ridiculous for sure. Did you ever play it all the way through?
I don't think I actually finished the game. I think I got to the last area back in the day. I don't think it was terribly long. I think it was probably, in the 15 to 20 hour-ish range. So it wasn't terrible. I remember, but I don't remember actually beating it. If I did, I was just probably too confused by what happened to actually fully comprehend or remember what I just did. The things I remember most are like, there's one point where you you literally get chased around by a giant like xenomorph from Alien, Jurassic Park style. Like it's chasing after you and you're running around, and it's behind you, and it's like, why is this happening? I don't know, and then you just get through, and then you're safe, and like, okay, great.
So what you're saying is it would be worth the $50 Australian it would cost me to get the cartridge.
I'm not going to endorse that purchase. I'm not going to say it's going to be a regrettable purchase, but
I'm not going to dissuade you either.
It's not worth it.
Yeah.
It's definitely worth if you don't want to pony up the money watching. I'm sure there's got to be playthroughs of it on the internet, no doubt, or long plays of it, and just watching again, just the initial. It must have been a Kojima game at some point. It just has all the trappings of what he would do, especially like when he got to Metal Gear Solid 2 and things like that. Those type of just incredibly convoluted, where they're trying to go for a message and maybe hit half the time, but it's just the story beats and what's happening. Even the goofy humor of it, right? Like, you pile drive aliens in this game. It's fantastic. So
I only realized from the images he's wearing like a jacket. I thought that was just his body. Like I thought he was shirtless and just wearing pants. And then now I realized no, he's got like a leather jacket on or something like that.
Yeah, oh no, that's Diaz, and that's one of the great twists at the beginning of the game, because you start out as Johnny Slater, but then you see Diaz and he shoots you. But then, oh no, you realize that Diaz is actually the real Johnny Slater. Oh, so you are Johnny Slater as Diaz, and
that's
it's fantastic. So yeah, I highly recommend watching videos of it or finding some means to. If you really want to play it, go ahead. I'm not going to recommend it. But
I think that's a solid investment page. I think that's something that could triple in price as soon as it's rediscovered by or Konami comes out of like hibernation and decides to start remastering their backlog. That'll be top of the list.
Well, if reviews are all over the place. I see a 4 out of 10, 7 out of 10, 9 out of 10, and 4.1 out of 10. Like. You either love the shtick and the campiness of this, or you realize like this is a piece of garbage. I don't know, but maybe somewhere in the middle. This would
be great for if the if the expansion pack service for the Nintendo Switch Online goes the route of like the SNES and the NES one, where they just add some just bizarre stuff that no one really wants later in it. If they add this to that would be a fantastic treat that unfortunately Nintendo doesn't like us that much, so they won't give us that. But
it's not Nintendo. I think it's Konami, right? It's trying to get the game from Konami. That's the tough part. I think Nintendo could do something ridiculous. Like like you said, Chris, they have put some like really obscure NES and Super NES games out on that service, but I don't think there's been any Konami games added to any of the NSO services, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah. Well, Limited Run has some kind of relationship with Konami. They must know someone there because they've been doing some funny releases. I think we should all email Limited Run Games and say, forget, put a pause on Castlevania games for now, and let's get some hybrid heaven out of Konami.
Are they doing the Turtles game?
Sorry?
Are they doing the Turtles compilation, the Ninja Turtles compilation?
No, that's a different company, I think. Whoever, because I know Chris Kohler is working on that one, and I can't remember who's. Yeah,
I think it's Digital Eclipse. So maybe we need to solicit them, because a lot of those games were Konami games, if I'm not mistaken.
Last thing I'll say about this game, just because I do, for some reason, I remember this of all things. I remember because you get to upgrade your body parts, right? Leg attacks are distinctly overpowered. So if you just like put all your points into legs, you can just wreck through the game pretty quickly. So just a piece of advice.
Every day.
Leg day every day. Just have quads of steel going through this game.
Only when you're fighting aliens and hybrids and God knows what else, clones. Yeah.
important, or what bizarre, or
I don't even know. Like, it's just more chaos, I guess. Like, it's funny. Like, I was gonna play the Stranger of Paradise demo, but then that didn't download because I didn't have enough space on my PS5. So all of a sudden, I decided to start because
chaos broke your PS5.
Pretty much, and it's bloody demos 40 gigs. Like, you're killing me here. And so I try. So then I'm like, okay, what do I already have installed that I can play on my PS5 while I'm waiting for the Stranger of Paradise demo to load? And Valkyria Chronicles popped up, and I know we were going to do an episode on it, and we still will, so I won't talk about that game today. I'm only a few chapters in anyways, but on just kind of on a whim, I guess I wanted something small to play over the weekend, so I played Harmony of Dissonance. And Harmony of Dissonance is one of the games in the Castlevania Advance collection that came out a few months ago, I guess. I had already played Circle of the Moon, so I was kind of playing it in order. And so Harmony of Dissonance itself isn't a particularly bizarre RPG, but it did get me thinking with this topic and these kind of Castlevania games that are incorporating RPGs, like RPG elements, I should say, like, how is it really necessary to even have these RPG elements? Are we really adding something meaningful? I don't know. In Harmony of Dissonance, like some of the other Igavanias, you have an experience point system. So you level up every so often. You don't see experience points on the screen unless you go into the pause menu. You can see how many you need to level up. But when you're just fighting enemies, you don't realize you're gaining experience until you actually do level up, which usually happens during a boss fight. Harmony of Dissonance is actually pretty good. Like it's kind of funny how, I don't know if this is just because after we've played Symphony of the Night, and Chris was on that episode with David and I, after playing that game, like now everything feels like Symphony of the Night. But Harmony of Dissonance feels like the most Symphony of the Night that I've played so far, I guess, since playing that one through. It's got the two castle thing. It's got they don't actually invert, but it does have two of them that you switch between at different save points. It's got, the collecting the pieces of Dracula. It's got, typical Metroidvania trappings of going back to places you've been before with new powers that you have. I think it's probably the better game than Circle of the Moon. Just thinking about this whole collection, I'm going to play, which the game I think is the best, Aria of Sorrow. I'm going to play that soon. I haven't played that yet. But I think it's better than Circle of the Moon. I found Circle of the Moon really, really tough. I was really abusing the rewind function there. But with Harmony of Dissonance, I didn't really need to. I felt like it's it's really well paced. You don't feel like you're, super overpowered or, really, really weak at any time. Like, as long as you're equipping new armor and new weapons and stuff like that periodically, you're probably going to feel at the right level for where you are. One neat thing about this game is that you don't combine card powers like you did in Circle of the Moon. So I guess this is the second GBA game. And so they did away with that system, probably for the better. And in this one, you have all of this kind of familiar Castlevania sub-weapons, like the cross, the book, the holy water dagger, stuff like that. Each one of those is associated with a different magic spell based on these kind of elemental books that you collect. So there's 5 books to collect. In my playthrough, I only got 3 of them, I got fire, ice, and wind. And when you toggle one of those magic books on, it changes your sub-weapon move to a different magic spell. So not only is there a different spell for every element book that you have turned on, but there's also a different one for every sub-weapon. So it leaves a lot of variety in terms of the moves you can use. The unfortunate thing is if you really like a particular move, like I was using the cross that you throw, pretty popular sub-weapon in Castlevania games. I had the ice book on, and it would summon like this kind of almost like a ice crystal shuriken kind of thing that would follow you around and would shoot enemies like a turret if enemies came onto the screen, and it would fire like 3 volleys before disappearing. And it uses your magic meter when you've got the book turned on rather than your hearts that you collect. So there's a lot of different moves you can do in this game to deal damage. So it's pretty cool that way. But yeah, I just got to thinking, like, I don't know what really we get out of adding RPG elements to these games or classifying them as such. Like, I feel like if you just make all of the enemies kind of the same strength and you don't have that character progression where you're getting stronger, because I don't know that it adds anything meaningful. I don't know if you guys have similar feelings about games like this where they just kind of shoehorn RPG elements, but they don't feel that meaningful.
Well, this was after Symphony of the Night, you said, right? So
yeah, this is the part of the GBA trilogy, and those games all came out after Symphony of the Night. They're kind of they're so obviously modeled in that style, right?
Yeah, I was just gonna say, like, it's probably one of those things where it's like a badge that it needs to put on, where it's like, hey, this is the Castlevania that you like. It's the one with the RPG stuff in it. So it's I'm sure to a certain extent there's like some marketing value to it.
Well, and I think this was actually Igarashi's return to Castlevania, because I don't think he had anything to do with Circle of the Moon. I thought that was made by a separate team. So that would make sense why there's much more of that, again, that callback to Symphony of the Night on this one, almost maybe to a fault. Yeah, that's an interesting question, Jordan. I don't know how to answer that fully.
It just feels like another little thing that's there. Like, oh, I beat a boss. I see the words level up. I'm not really going to feel that much stronger. Like it's that thing we've talked about before on the show of games where they put in an RPG element and you level up so incrementally that the progression doesn't feel meaningful. Like I think much more meaningful progression in this game comes from equipping your character, right? If you equip different whips or different orbs to your weapon slot so that you're doing like a different elemental attack, or you equip a different helmet or a different accessory or different chest piece, those do feel meaningful. Like you notice that you're taking much less damage compared to what you were before. But when you level up, you just don't really feel that much stronger or more capable in this game. And so it's just a funny thing that I was thinking about with the Igarashi games or the games that came after Symphony of the Night, where they've put in RPG elements as one of those things to change. I just don't know how much it really adds in all of these games, but maybe I felt it especially here that the level ups just didn't seem all that meaningful.
Yeah, and it could just be a just that dopamine trick, right? Like, well, if you see the levels are going up, okay, that's more incentive to keep going, to keep progressing. So it's just another little thing to encourage advancement through the game. But that's interesting that it doesn't feel like there's that much of an impact on it. I think you're right in that things like your items and equipment have a much bigger impact on what you're doing. Mm-hmm. So that's interesting. I'd be interested to play like that in Symphony of the Night, like kind of back to back, to see how much of a difference there is between that.
It almost feels like I've done that a little bit. Like really, the only other Castlevania game we played Super Castlevania 4 about a month ago, and Circle of the Moon I played before this one as well, just trying to play them in order. But yeah, I think the idea of maybe playing this one against Symphony of the Night and just seeing it's just funny. You're right. I think you're right, Chris. The idea of Igarashi coming back to the series and like, okay, let's not fix what's not broken, right? Like let's just do exactly what we did, but make it portable now, right? Instead of just on the PlayStation. So. Yeah, I mean, I don't know that Just Belmont is like a great protagonist or anything like that. I think Maxime, who's in the game and you can play as after you beat the game, or I guess if you have the right codes to put in at the beginning, you can play as him. I was watching a speed run of the Maxim gameplay. It just seems a lot more interesting than Just, but yeah, I don't know. It's just funny how this character not only looks like Alucard, the game plays so much like that, so many familiar trappings. One of the only things that was missing was the kind of transformations that Alucard does. There was no mist or bat transformations or anything like that. Wolf. I think it was really fun. No, nothing like that. Like Just really, he doesn't transform at all. Like any abilities you get are strictly movement based, like a slide, a double jump, a super jump that kind of vaults you up to the ceiling kind of type deal, but no transformations or anything like that. I guess because he's more human than vampire, unlike Alucard that's kind of 50-50, right? So maybe it made more sense for him to be more magical. You do have the spells are really cool in this game. I think it's fun. I think it's definitely better than Circle of the Moon, and I'm glad I went back to that collection because I feel like there's all these game collections coming to Switch where you get so excited about it and then you only up playing one or two of them, speaking of that Ninja Turtles Cowabunga collection that's coming out, like there's like 12 games on there, and I worry that I'm only going to play one or two when really I want to play like 7 or 8. I want to play most of the games on there. So I'm trying to like look back at my Switch library and see like what collections have I picked up, because there are a lot of like collections of retro games coming to the Switch, and it's just so easy to download it, play one, and then move on to the next thing.
Well, you just need to put it into a group folder. The
Oh,
collection.
don't get me started on the folders, the groups. Oh my
Make
god!
your own collection.
Yeah, pretty much. Collect a collection of collections or something like that.
You need
yeah.
the horse blinders, like that they put on the horses, that they're only looking in one direction. So it's like you can't look at any new releases, you can't look at any of your backlog. You just have to stay focused on the game at hand.
The only way that's possible, if I say, okay, I'm retiring from the Thirsty Mage, I'm retiring from NWR, I'm officially not doing, any kind of games writing or creation. I'm just playing for like pure entertainment. It's the only way to have those blinders on. Otherwise, like you're just in this business, this industry. We're so inundated with news every day. There's some news about something coming or some reminder, like, hey, don't forget about this. This is coming too.
The new shiny thing.
Yeah, exactly.
The new shiny thing is Chrono Cross in a couple of weeks.
Chrono Cross Kirby reviews dropped today. It looks like one of the best Kirby games of all time. Like, oh my god, like why? Why does it have to be the best Kirby game of all time coming out in 2 days? Like, that's not good. It's good, but it's not good too.
At least it's a shorter game than other.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Although you say that, Paige, and I'm like, I feel like this is one I'm probably going to play with my son. So yeah, I could blaze through it myself, but if I'm going to play it through with him,
is there going to be arguments about who gets to be Kirby and who has to be Bandana Waddle?
It's definitely him. He's very much like he chooses his own character, and I get whoever's left over. So yeah, I'm going to be going through the game as Waddle Dee, I guess. Bandana Waddle Dee.
You get the fun of constantly being pushed back to wherever he's walking,
and not being able to transform into a car or a vending machine.
Oh, it's very cute though, because when Kirby transforms into a car, the Bandana Dee just sits on the back of it, like holds on.
I do like that. That's a nice touch. It's a nice that he's not just left behind in the dust, right?
No.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah, too many games though. But Harmony of Dissonance is really good. If you haven't picked up the Castlevania Anniversary or Castlevania, no, those are different things. Castlevania Advance Collection. I think it's such a $20 or something. It's such a worthwhile purchase. There's so many hours of entertainment that comes from these games. Even if Dracula X isn't something great, I think the 3 kind of Igavania style games, all 15-ish hours or around that if you want to do everything. Plus, multiple ways to play through them. Easy recommendation for sure.
Cool. Well, I guess I'll finish up with a look at I guess tonight's theme or tonight's topics inspiration, I suppose. But before I jump into that, real quickly, I'm just going to talk about the game. So this isn't even the first kind of weird game where Square kind of takes the Final Fantasy franchise off the rails a little bit. I would argue that Final Fantasy X2 was kind of the first or one of the early ones where they kind of decided to go in a different direction. Because up until this point, the Final Fantasy, franchise was always like all the games are serious. You could argue there's some weirdness in Final Fantasy VIII, and no arguments there. But really, like the tones were always very, epic and serious with some levity here and there. But Final Fantasy and never a sequel. Like there was always a numbered, standalone stories numbered all the way through. And then all of a sudden they decide, okay, we're gonna, from the success from Final Fantasy X, since it did so well, they decided to do a sequel to that one where it's the first time where it's following up on the story. And it's such a totally different tone from Final Fantasy X. Yeah. Like it's Yuna, even right off the bat, like the game starts with a cutscene of Yuna being a pop singer. Like, I don't know how you go from priestess who's supposed to like sacrifice herself to, save the world from sin to I'm singing pop songs on a stage. And I think there's like some kind of clone or something. Like, it's not even really her. It's like some kind of bad guy in, it's like the LeBlanc, I think, in some kind of like Yuna costume or something to make it look like it's just this, it starts off wild and it keeps getting wilder as it goes on. You equip different dresses with different weapons. The enemies are like a Team Rocket style anime villains. Like, they're not even that serious of villains. There's one scene where Yuna, like there's a mini game of where Yuna's massaging LeBlanc. It's a wild game. So, Square Enix is no stranger to these games. As And yeah, that brings us to Stranger of Paradise. Like, I don't know. Like I said, I purposely only played the demo because I don't want to spoil it for anybody. It just came out a week ago, but this game is absolutely insane. It starts off with cutscenes at the very beginning, which I'm watching it and I'm like, who authorized this budget? Because it seems like money was thrown at this game. Like they had raided Scrooge McDuck's vault. Like it's ridiculous. The amount of detail in the initial cutscene where it's never shown in the actual Final Fantasy game, because the game starts off with Garland having abducted Princess Sarah. But the opening cutscene of this game is Garland like just throwing Sarah up on his shoulder and then just walking out the front door and basically wrecking everything along the way. It's insane, like the amount of detail in the knights that are like fighting him, and then in the castle that he walks out of. And then they start the game with absolutely zero explanation as to why three dudes from modern times are just walking around the world of Final Fantasy. Zero explanation whatsoever. They don't even know they're from the real world. It doesn't even make any sense. They're just walking along, and then the first time they meet, they just all just happen to walk into each other in front of the Corneria Castle. Like they just kind of bump into each other, and then Jack is like ready to fight them until he realizes they each have like vibrating crystals in their pants. It's ridiculous. And then the king
hold on. You can't just say vibrating crystals in their pants and then like the total nonsense and then just go on to the next thing. Like what is this game? Like what is happening?
We need to share the crystal. We need to charge the crystal.
Well, they all had to from shining the orbs back in the original game, right? Like
they all had to pull their stones out of their pockets and compare them to each other. It was it was those crystals. You know how like in the beginning of Final Fantasy, the four warriors of light show up and they all have like the darkened crystal.
Yeah,
it's the same thing. The three of them each have the darkened crystal, and it's funny, they all know the prophecy too. Like they're convinced that they are the warriors of light, even though there's three of them. Right. And then people are even asking, like the king even's like, there's only three of you, but I'm sure you guys are the warriors of light. It's just like, this is the way he talks too. The king literally like, there should be 4 warriors of light, but there's only 3 of you, but that's okay.
It feels like satire. It feels like you're a satire or a parody of the original game, right? Like maybe that's the Stranger of Paradise part, right? It's a retelling of that story, but also like not, to be a parody of a game that was very serious back then, right? Like that was a serious, dark, fantasy RPG, but this one just doesn't seem to take itself seriously at all.
No, not at all. And then there's so many things that they just leave hanging. So the 3 of them show up to Corneria Castle. They somehow get an audience with the king, and they somehow convince the king that the 3 of them are warriors, even though they're wearing like track pants and t-shirts, while everyone else is walking around in like medieval garb. And then the king sends them off to do this quest to prove that they're warriors. You don't actually see the quest. You just see them coming back from the quest. and there's like, Jack has like a cut on his chin. And they're like, that's basically like the extent of the damage they took on whatever quest they were sent out to go do to prove that they're actual warriors. So then they come back and the king's like, well, I guess you guys are warriors then. And he hands them the key to the Chaos Shrine. They go to this Chaos Shrine. This is like the first demo where you're fighting in the Chaos Shrine and you fight what you think is Garland at the end of the shrine. But what ends up happening is that so you defeat Garland and then the armor falls off the person. And then the 4th warrior of light just kind of stands up and was like, well, that was a waste of time. and they're like, who are you? And she's apparently the final warrior of light from 4 warriors of light from 10 years ago that apparently tried to kill Chaos.
No, hold on. You're not talking about the video game 4 warriors of light.
No, I'm talking about
okay.
So
Paige and I got really excited for a second. You're talking about this DS game with connections to Bravely Default, not this one.
So this is the first indication that there's some kind of weird time mechanics going on here, because so the woman that's wearing Garland's armor, she kind of comes out of the armor and explains to the three guys that 10 years ago 4 Warriors of Light tried to defeat Chaos, and they discovered Chaos wasn't real, and so she decided, screw it, I'm just going to wait here and try to make myself Chaos. So she puts Garland's armor on and just sits in the Chaos Shrine hoping to become Chaos.
Hey, fake it till you make it.
Sure. More power to you. Yeah, that's bizarre. Okay.
Yeah. So then she's explaining to them that there is no chaos. It's all just a legend that to keep kind of people in line or whatever. And this is the I'm sure everyone's seen the video where Jack is like, oh, that's BS, and then just turns away and starts listening to Limp Bizkit and leaves. That's when that happens. So there's no explanation as to why Jack has an iPhone and Bluetooth head like iPods or whatever you call it, the ear pods. Like he just walks away from them all, the three of them, listening to his music, and the three of them look at him like they just don't know what's happening. It completely cuts to them going back to the castle. Like no explanation made. It's just, okay, she's now on the team. Like she explains like, oh, I'll just hang out with you guys, I guess. And so they go back to the king and they explain that, that they got there and the throne was empty. And the king was like, he tells them, yeah, chaos doesn't exist. It's just something we made up. and so he tells, but he says like the legend is real, that you have to go make your crystals shine again. So he's, go out on the quest. And he said, if you can make all 4 crystals shine again, then you'll be able to claim that you killed Chaos. And Jack was like, no, Chaos is out there. Don't you worry. And so they go out on the quest, and Jack is still convinced that Chaos is real. So then they do like the traditional where they're walking across the bridge, and they have that scene where they're all like, there's the castle and the village and the sun setting or whatever. And that's all pretty neat. And then they show up in Provoca, and the people of Provoca start throwing stones at them and spitting on them. and the one guy, Ash, is like, what the hell? And he like grabs a kid and starts yelling at him like, what's your deal? And the kid explains that Cornelia has been sending people off to their deaths to like on these like 4 Warriors of Light quests. And the guy's like, my dad was sent off to get a crystal and he died. And the 4 of them are like, they don't know what to make of it. And Jack's like, don't worry, we'll get her done. And the kid's like, screw you, man. My dad is dead. And so there's this like complete misconnection between like him and what's going on in the world. And then the kid, and then Jack's like, where's the mayor? And the kid explains that the town is actually just run by a bunch of pirates in a cave. And that's mission 2. So mission 2 is you're walking through a cave, and it totally looks like Goonies, where there's like a ship like in the water in the cave, and they get there, and so then they like beat up Captain it's pronounced funny, Bikey or something like that.
Yeah, Bilky or Bilk. Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah.
Sure, but
So you get into a fight with him and you beat him, and then he explains. So Jack's like, tell me about the crystals. And so the captain's like, I don't know anything, but Astos, the king of the dark elves, knows. And so they're like, well, what's a dark elf? And the captain's like, I don't know. I guess it's like an elf that's eaten like other elves or something. Like this is like, he doesn't even know. But he's like, but we'll take you there. It's fine. And it's
I like the comments that Jack is a cutscene skipper. He's don't care, I guess.
Well, that's because I've seen a cutscene on Twitter, and this is probably what's coming next, because I stopped the demo ends right before you meet Astos, and Astos is like starting to get into like a spiel or speech or whatever, and Jack just says, I didn't ask for a story, I said, what about the crystals? And then Astos is like, oh, a man who doesn't like to waste time, I like that.
Yeah.
So it seems like they've taken like that original trailer where all Jack said was chaos, and now all he says is crystals. Because you've said the word crystals like 1,000 times just now describing this game, and I have to give it to you because I think that I don't know if I'm interested in the gameplay. Like I want you to talk a little bit more about the gameplay, David. But the story and just how bizarre it is, and the callbacks to Final Fantasy 1 do have me more intrigued than I was kind of just around the launch time. So, but what about the gameplay? What is there any differences between that first demo, or how are you driving with how you actually play the game?
So the game is, and this is one of the funny things, is because it came out after Elden Ring, and there's obviously with the From Software, it sparked the accessibility and difficulty debate, and so Square Enix leaned right into it by kind of mocking like hey, if you don't really want to challenge, here's all these accessibility features so you could just basically wreck everyone and not have to worry about it. And that was one of the things is that in the demo I actually especially the final battle with Garland, I felt like there was a lot of difficulty, or it seemed kind of hard in the demo, but then I think I just used whatever the default settings were, and I just absolutely wrecked everyone. Like, yeah. And it's funny, some of the mechanic or the moves and stuff are just insane. Like, there's one in the cave. So Jack has like this finishing move that he does on enemies that you can use. It's called Soul Crush, I think, where like there's a break meter, and if you can get them down low enough, you could just use a Soul Crush, and he'll either like stomp on their head to explode their body, or my favorite so far has been he puts the Sahagin on his back, like kind of like a Brock Lesnar F5, but then he just kind of tears them in half all across his back.
That's great, yeah.
And like there's like the walls where there's like this like goopy stuff on the wall, like this goopy monster, and he just like shoves its hand down its throat and rips out its tongue, and it explodes. And it's just wild. And it's funny too, because I know one of the criticisms in reviews and stuff was that there's too much loot, and I was thinking like, well, how bad could it be? And I'm like, every time you defeat an enemy, there's like 4 things that are dropped, and they're not even like all that much different from each other. It's like here's a level 4 sword that has a small boost to HP. Here's a level 4 sword that has a small boost to attack instead. And it's like I think I ended with like picking up probably 100 items by the time I was done just the first level.
Jeez, like, that's a lot. Yeah,
this is wild. And then I mean, the one good thing is you can go into the menu and just hit one button to optimize, and then you can just go on with your day, sort of thing. But Jack can change between classes on the fly. So, and I think there's like 20 something classes you can get. So I was initially just sticking with like the sword. There's like a large sword user and a mage. So I stuck with that. But even in the first level, there's like large sword user, and then there's like a fencing sword, kind of like fencing style sword user. There's a lancer, pugilist. Like there's just so many going on. And then you choose, like, you can only choose 2 of the 3 party members to be with you in the match. And I don't even like, they're fighting someone, but I don't know what they're doing. Like, you don't have much control over what's going on there. But yeah, it's just like chaos is a good word to use for this game, because the story is insane. The action is just completely frenetic. Like you're going from one to another, and you're just pounding. Like, it's very fast action combat, so you're just pounding on people and tearing them to bits, blowing stuff up. You're just like destroying the environmental stuff around you. You just go like you're just like a sledgehammer or a bull in a china shop, just destroying everything. It's crazy. And then like even in the loading screens, they're talking about Cornelia in Dimension 12 is like this, and then this place in Dimension 14 is like, and I'm like, what are you talking about? Dimension? What dimensions? Like, what's going on? Like, I haven't even gotten to the point where I'm on, like, and then they're talking about, like, there's like this narrator in the loading screen that's kind of talking about these places, and I'm like, who's the narrator? I don't understand what's happening.
Yeah, it sounds actually really good now. I think that just I didn't really know what this game was going to be, and I think you're giving me a good idea, David, what I've seen, the impressions and reviews. That if you are into this universe, if you're into this world and these characters that you've encountered in previous iterations of this game, Like you're gonna get into this game, and it might be a nice kind of like more laid back, more like devil may care game compared to Elden Ring, which is a lot more serious and difficult, and you have to be patient and all that stuff. Like this one, like maybe I'll just turn down the difficulty and just embrace the wildness of this game, embrace the chaos, right? So I'm absolutely picking this up this year, and I think it's also the type of game we're gonna see a discount on this game. At least
Probably
by
soon.
Black Friday, right? Probably a lot sooner, probably in the summer, around E3 time. Probably around the time when they announce Final Fantasy 16 or they show more about Final Fantasy 16, because everyone's going to get hyped up and want to buy something Final Fantasy at that time, right? So, but I have to play this game at some point.
Oh, and terrific music too, because they do new arrangements, like full orchestral arrangements of the old music.
Oh, awesome!
But they make it like more more action based, like more like they speed stuff up. But you can tell like that they're using samples from the old music and stuff, so it's like total nostalgia beat.
Yeah, I love it, and I was waiting. I really was 50-50 and waiting to get more of your impressions, and it sounds like a game I'm really going to enjoy. So I do want to pick this up at some point for sure.
Yep, definitely looking forward to get back into it. I used discipline. I stopped at the Western Keep, even though I was really excited to see Jack punch him in the face, but I'll save that for later tonight.
That feels like his default response to everybody. It's just like, I don't like what you're saying. I'm going to punch you in the face and curse at you, right? Like that's how he solves problems,
Jack is the permanent bad cop.
Yeah, exactly.
Cool. Well, I think that'll take us to the end of this episode. I don't know if anyone has anything to plug or if anything going on they want to talk about before the end.
We should plug. Chris, you recently published something on Thirsty Mage. Why don't you tell people about that?
Oh yeah, just did a quick review of a little roguelike game called Royal Frontier. It's not a bad game. It's just there's not a lot to it. It's just it's a pretty cheap game. And David, I think you're still offering a special offer to patrons. So patrons, pay attention to that, please.
Yeah, there's two. We have two codes if anyone wants to play it. So right now, for anyone who's in our Patreon. If you want one of those codes for Royal Frontier, there's nothing you have to do. All you have to do is let me know if you want it, and I'll send you the code. So obviously there's only two, so we'll go with first come first serve at this point. But yeah, if you're looking to have something to play on the Switch, hit me up in the Discord or on the Patreon.
Yeah, and if you're not a patron, a good opportunity to get in. Check it out, right? So.
Yep.
Yeah, and it's not a bad game at all. It's really short and there's not a lot to it, but it's a decent little game. So.
Seemed like Oregon Trail with turn-based combat.
You need those palate cleansers between some of these bigger, more serious, more chaotic games, I suppose, right? So
exactly.
Paige, what about you? I know you've been busy with work, but what about YouTube or reviews or anything like that?
Well, I did finally publish the Atelier Sophie 2 review on RPG site, and and soon there'll probably be an episode on that as well.
Right on. Yeah, that's right, David. You guys I know you had plans to do an episode on that one too. I think that'll take us to the end of this episode. I don't really have anything to plug. I do have a review for Kraken Academy, which is kind of a funny little adventure game that just came out on Switch. People can check that out on NintendoWorldReport.com. But yeah, I think that'll do it for this episode. I'm sure David will be sharing more impressions of Stranger of Paradise as he continues on. I know that he finished a Triangle Strategy and it's funny.
Started the second playthrough already.
we both ended up at the same ending. I'm not surprised because I think it that probably is one of the ones that more players would go towards, I think. But yeah, we'll leave any discussion of that ending till another time. But lots of good games coming out. Kirby in a couple days. Chrono Cross. David mentioned that earlier. Anything else? I guess now that I'm finally playing Valkyria Chronicles, we'll be able to do an episode on that soon because I'm hoping to finish that in the next week or so. That'll be my serious game while I'm playing Kirby on my Switch with my son. But I do need a nighttime game for me. So the long awaited episode on that coming out. Like Paige mentioned, probably an episode on Atelier Sophie 2 coming soon too. But always lots of good stuff happening at the Thirsty Mage. So thanks again, everybody, for listening. Thanks to Paige and Chris for joining us. Nice to hear some other voices on the podcast that we hadn't heard from in a little while. We'll talk to everybody next week. Bye for now.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.